right, so today we're here with Gavin Tye, founder of Sales Market Fit and sales director of MyPass Global. Gavin, how are you doing?
Good, mate. Good. It's been a couple of years since we did the last podcast.
I think it's been 4.
Yeah, with Feb 2018. So it's just on 4, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Yeah, wow. Well, you're the first person I've had back, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
So thanks for coming back. Hopefully I did something right last time to entice you to come in and talk to me again. But this time you are now a founder yourself.
Yeah. I am decided to, give it a go, really. Working closely with startups for a couple of years now, or it's been more than 4 or 5 years. I see it and I admire the founders for the courage. And I was last year, which I'm sure we'll get into, working for a multinational, really made me question what my passion is and what I want in life with a young family. So I was like, without, pardon the pun, I can either shit or get off the pot. I shit. No.
Very good. So sales market fit, we've all heard about product market fit. Mm-hmm. What's sales market fit?
So when I was on the podcast last time, we talked about my journey in sales when I was at a company called Red Eye. One of the things I realized quickly is that a sale is a consequence. So a lot of people, when they give sales teams their goals, it's revenue driven. Hey, go out, you've got this revenue target, I want you to hit it. In theory, if you've got a $100,000 revenue target and you have an average deal size of $20,000, that's 5 clients you have to get within a year. And that kind of makes sense, but revenue's a lag indicator. It's an outcome of something else happening in the process. And it doesn't matter what you try to sell. A sale in every sense is a consequence, and it's a consequence of someone deciding to buy. You can skin it any other way you want, but at the most fundamental level, that's what it is. So I learnt selling high-value SaaS where people were showing a huge amount of interest, but they weren't purchasing. And I was like, something's not going on here. There's something that I'm missing. And being a problem solver and really responsible, along with the founder of Red Eye, for generating revenue, because we had 20, 40, up to 100 people in the business, I was responsible for solving that problem. And what I learnt was that although you may find product market fit in the B2B world, and B2C is a little different because there's one decision maker. It's different. People aren't necessarily buying with revenue. They're buying with downloading an app. But in the B2B world, there is so much complexity about the markets you operate in. And also there's different tiers within the market. So essentially sales market fit is about exploring what those tiers are within the market, what your value is to those companies within those tiers, and understanding the business process that companies need to go through in order to buy. Now, in a market, we'll for the sake of simplicity, we'll call it 3 tiers. Tier 3, which is really simple, and Tier 1, which is really complex with multiple decision makers involved, maybe a government organization with a lot of rigor around purchasing instance, right?
And like enterprise, that type of thing?
Yeah, enterprise. Okay. And enterprise government, which comes with so much more controls about buying things and all that kind of stuff. So it's about understanding what the process is with each one of those tiers you go into and aligning your sales process or your sales activities to those processes. So you can iron out any speed humps that you know are coming once you learn after many times going through it. So you can, at the end of the day, the outcome is to generate more sales quickly and a scalable sales process. But it's by focusing on different things. It's about focusing on helping a client through mindset change and giving them the tools and the information at that time to help them make that decision to be able to buy. Fundamentally, if you ask yourself, a sales a consequence of someone deciding to buy, that starts opening your mind up to different things. Then you ask yourself, how do people get to that decision to buy? If you can't tell them what to do, how do they get there? So, and it's really, organizations are made up of people. And this is what I've learned over many times, right? Because one thing when I come in 2018, I was learning this out and figuring it out from a personal level. And it was intuitively, and then, you go through the unconscious incompetence and conscious incompetence and da-da-da. So one thing I realized is organizations are made up of people. And if people need to make a decision to buy, how do they do that? And we generally make decisions the same way, because people are people. And so I was like, okay, well, people make decisions when they get series of pieces of information for mindset change from one state to the next. And eventually they will get to a choice of either wanting or needing to buy and be ready to do that. And, you probably follow this as well. And once you realize it, you'll go, yeah, that makes complete sense. And I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. It's the same for a $50 product. If we go and buy, a movie ticket, it is to buying a drone, to buying a car. It's just that the processes are more subconscious, and then they come out into the conscious when it gets more a bigger cost, because it's we actually have to go, right, can we afford this and stuff like that. So,
and justify it as well to others.
Justified, yeah. And see the return on investment, the ROI. You're really not going to spend $100 on something that you think the value is only worth $5, right? So it starts with being interested in something, whether that's marketing or someone reaching you, or you seeing something that you're interested in. And I'll use a drone that I wanted to buy for an example. I've been sitting on buying a drone for a long period of time, and I finally went, you know what, I'm going to buy one, but what do I want it for? What problem do I have, or what outcome do I want within my life? And I was like, I don't really want to I don't really need it to follow me, because I don't ride dirt bikes, and I don't need to carry a big payload. I just need an entry-level drone, but I also want it for reasonable video quality. So I looked at once I understood that, went out to the market, and I was like, okay, looked at DJI, which is a really popular drone company, and they had drones at $799 or $499, $799, $1,500, $3,000. I was like, I don't want the entry level one at $499 because I only had one battery, but I'll need 3 batteries because I'll fly it for an hour and a half. Never flown it for an hour and a half straight, but that's not the point. So I was like, what are my requirements? So I went from, am I interested, to what problem do I need solving? I'm going to go look for requirements. And then I was engaged the market. Then I went to JB Hi-Fi and bought the drone. And so it went from interest, problem definition, requirements gathering, engage with the market. And every organization engages like that when they want to buy something. The difference is, at the moment, with so much information out there in the market, is by the time an organization or a target client engages with a vendor, with a SaaS business, if they ever get to them, because SaaS businesses, in reality, the marketing doesn't often hit their target market, because the other incumbents have bigger marketing budgets, are well known from experience and things like that. But by the time they engage with the market, they're 70% through their buying process. It is very hard to change your mind if you're going in. It's very hard to change someone's mind, to open them up to different features and functions of a SaaS platform where they have their mind set on something already in their mind. They've already gone through 70% of the buying process. Mm-hmm. So essentially, the sales market fit is about not being an information age as much anymore, about turning that into the influence, being able to influence the buyer's decision or the buying journey. And so to do that, we need to go back further into their decision-making journey to affect mindset change, help them define, get them interested in a SaaS product or whatever that is. Taking that off the table and go, right, you're actually buying a fundamental business outcome, but what is that? And actually measuring that in a way to really maximize the problem, and then building up the law of reciprocity, creating a partnership approach, getting off a transactional relationship into more of a relationship building exercise. Then once they go, wow, we really need to solve this, then showing them how you can do it. And by the time they engage with the market, because they probably have to do their due diligence and speak to 3 or 4 companies, or go through a procurement process if they're big B2E, which is what we spoke about years ago. You've done so much work, you have such a head start on the competition, that you're in a far better position than what you were if you were just waiting to come to you, because chances are, 1, they won't find you, or 2, they don't think, because you often feature not as feature rich as the incumbents because they've been around a long period of time. They're not looking at outcomes, they're only looking at features of a platform. And it was only out of necessity of being at Red Eye, realizing that we were up against the Autodesks of the world and big incumbents, that I had to outsmart them and go back further into the buying process to open their eyes up. And it's the same in every industry. We need to go back in the buying journey. And if we don't, we're reactive and we've lost the initiative, and we're playing in the red ocean of fighting against all the incumbents. And it's really a tit for tat game. But this is really about outsmarting the competition and building an efficient, scalable sales machine by actually not doing that much different. It's about just thinking about the buying journey instead of selling. Yeah.
So what would most people do wrong then that you would help? Are they trying to come in too far along the process? Basically, they're trying to start too far in?
It's the perspective. It's perspective. So our perspective often is us looking out to the world. And when you think about a sales organization or any SaaS business that's created, they actually don't have a sales problem. What they have is a demand problem, because they could take the order for 10 sales or 10x or 20x more sales than they have today. So in theory, they can sell, that's no problem. But what they have is they don't have 10x, 20x of the clients out there seeing their unique value and wanting and making a choice, yes, I want that, and then they can sell. That's the problem. So it's perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. So, and do you just work with SaaS businesses mainly?
Well, because I've come to age working with SaaS businesses from about seed to Series A, I can see that they have the most to gain, and it really pains me when a technical founder. It really pains me when I see a technical founder. I admire them so much. They got 5 or 10 different hats. They've got to grow the company. They've got to write, all code, build it. They've got to manage shareholders and stakeholder expectations. And then when they get ready for a saleable product, they go, okay, I'm ready to sell it. I'm going to hire a salesperson. I'm going to outsource that to the salesperson. Now, at that point, you don't really know if the pipeline or the length of time to sale is either 1 month or 3 months or 5 months. Often the rule of thumb is the bigger the ticket price, the more stringent the buying process will be in a business. So that does take longer. But the challenge comes is if I come into your business and you're a technical founder, and I said, well, it's about 6 months to sale. And you go, okay. And we think a sales binary. It's actually not binary. It's a series of actions along the way to get to a buying choice, which is only a small slither of time when they're actually ready to do that. So it's not binary. They don't go yes, no, but they've got to go through all these processes. Now the challenge comes is if you hire me and we get to 6 months and I go, look, it's going to slide out a little bit, but they're coming, and those dates slide to the right. Let's say we get to 9 months. You have no choice but to let me go. You haven't learned anything because you've outsourced it to me. I've told you what you wanted to hear. And now you're 9 months in. And now you've got to hire someone else. It's going to take another 3 or 4 months, often 2 buying cycles for them to get up to speed. So it's easy to be at 2 years without any insight into selling. And you could have product market fit, but no sales market fit. Then you run out of runway, and you had a great product, but just people don't see it in the market. I just think because people focus on the wrong things. And the sales market fit framework is about these stages. What is the ideal pieces of information you need in each stage? What are we assuming they're thinking, and how can we confirm that thinking and actually go, right, that's a starting point. Now we know where they are. It's like golf. We don't need to get them. We don't win golf on the first hole. We just need to get to the second hole, the second stage, right? And it's like a sales journey. It's like any journey. Any journey has a beginning, a middle, like a beginning and an end, and a journey along the way. So you really need to understand what their current thinking is, and then you go, right, okay, I can understand that. Now I could get them to the next stage. And it's about framing the problem or the problems you solve in a way that relates to them. It's about sharing stories and getting to pick up on themes and go, wow, that is interesting. Yeah, I'd like to see that. So common problems I see is people go, hey, I'm from company X, you want to see a demo? And that in theory sounds great, but relate that to people. If you're at a party and someone come and said, do you know how good I am? Look what I've been doing. I've been going to the gym. Look how big my arms are. That's so conceited and so, it's a harsh word, but it's arrogant. Like, that's why there's a sales problem. It's not, there's demand. You don't know what their business needs. So how can you tailor it to what they want? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And so there is a time and place, I assume, to say, though, would you like to see the demo?
Yeah.
And you're just saying that's probably not first contact, right?
Yeah, like how can you give context to the problems that you solve? There's no two organizations that are the same. Whether it's, no two plumbing companies with one plumber in the businesses are the same. The personalities are different. The problems within that company are different. So when you get to bigger businesses, the organizational issues are always different. So the problems you solve can be looked through different lenses and present themselves in different ways, that if you just went in and say, hey, this is what we do, the value I do is improving employee efficiency, and they go, well, what if that's not their problem? Their problem is employee turnover or something like that. You're essentially throwing a dart to hit the scoreboard, hoping that number 20 is their problem. By understanding and getting a insight into the challenges within their business, asking questions about them, you'll get a far better insight of what their hot buttons are, because it's really 20% of their problems that you probably solve. 20% of the problems will give them 80% of value. Like the Pareto principle rings true in this scenario.
Yeah, cool. So is this something that you almost develop a framework where you go through a process to sell to a certain person or a certain type of people? And is the assumption that a lot of those businesses will behave the same because you've got that framework to go through?
So businesses will generally behave the same to get to a buying choice, but nothing's ever you have to tailor your approach to what matches that organization. You can't tell them, say, hey, we're at this stage where we have to help you with a business case, because they'll go, we don't need to do it, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they need to, like in the situation with MyPass at the moment, sometimes we're bypassing this whole process because they know us. But we'll go back and say, hey, during this implementation process, to the implementation team, let's go back and measure the current state, because this will really help to measure the ROI at a later stage. And we can use this, get this data today from current client, and we can turn it into a framework or a template that we can use where tomorrow's client, who we don't know yet, says, yes, we need help here. So they don't, it's like people, right? Generally we know how people will act, but you can't say how every individual person will act. Yeah. So the best you can do is plan for the worst, and then if it's best, if it doesn't need that, but you're far better off being conservative and paying attention to this and being over prepared than actually getting into a situation and saying, oh, we really need to do a business case. We go, okay, good luck with that, and come back when you're done, because the chances are they're going to draw the wrong conclusion, particularly if you're a disruptor in a market.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about the phrase sales market fit? Is this, you just looked at product market fit and thought, well, we're talking about that a lot, but we need this other thing?
Well, actually, before I started this sales market fit, I actually did a lot of research with 50 founders, and we were talking about what are their challenges. And they were saying, a product market fit come up a lot. And you hear it a lot, but in the sales world, I don't really care about that. Like, I have to find a way to sell, or I have to find a way to help someone get to a buying choice, whether it's ready or not. So it really, if you get caught up in product market fit, you can say, well, product market fit we don't have product market fit, so they're not going to buy. It actually serves me no purpose. But I think if you know where our lanes are, where we're strong in between, then everything is always product market fit, because you tailor the message, and then over time it expands. So in my research, I was like, there's a lot of literature on product market fit, and I was like, I wonder if there's any literature on how to apply approach to their markets, and there's really zero. And it was really surprising. And there's a couple of theories that I have. One is, I think product market fit is probably a term coined by technical people who aren't strong in the sales industry or in strong sales and aren't experienced in the sales world.
Yep.
And then I was like, is this real? Because then you can have a theory and you go, is this real? But you can actually see it in other industries that are more entrenched. And it didn't have a term. And I was like, okay, so you can see it in industries like the real estate market, for instance. I'll give you an example. Let's say tier 3, tier 2, tier 1. Tier 3 being the residential homes.
Mm-hmm.
In the residential homes, the size of the market is large because there's a lot of individual buyers. So that means competitors in the market are high because there's a lot of people that people can speak with, right? And the business process is still there, but they set it up because they know the business process that's well worn. Like if I need to go get pre-approval for a loan, I do that. Banks are set up for that. They know that you need to get a building and pest inspection. You want to get that. And the business process, it's well honed. The market is there to apply that. And so that business process for tier 3 is really well documented. Now, when you go to tier 2, let's just say multi-million-dollar houses, there's a lot less of those. So there's a lot less buyers. The competitors are shrinking, but the business process may be different. Maybe it's I'll put it under corporation, or the process to get a $10 million loan for a house may be different. And so therefore you have probably a personal banker or something, that the process is completely different than it is for a consumer market, right? But tier 1, let's just say we're talking about a high-rise building or something, big commercial space. 1 William Street here, which is a government building, is owned by a superannuation company. Their requirements and features they want from that are completely different. They have depreciation schedules. They have so much more. The market is so much more different, and the buying cycle is so different. So you can see that, and the companies within there align their buying process or the sales process to how that company would buy, and it takes longer, but you would expect more revenue. And you go, right, okay, well that's there, and it's also there in the car industry as well. It's exactly the same. But because B2B SaaS is relatively new in the sense that be to large deal size, because 6 years ago, large organizations really had a no cloud policy. So it's really only, it's a market in its infancy. So it hasn't happened yet. You'll see people luck into their right sales market fit, but I would doubt whether it's a formula that they've investigated. Mm-hmm. They've actually just gone, yeah, well, that works. So, and accelerated. And you see that with, Atlassian, with Jira, and there's a company called PlanGrid where they started at tier 3, aligned with their features, and actually went through. Well, Atlassian sold to their tier with their programmers or developers within the business, and then it went through into different organizations, and they could accelerate. PlanGrid did the same thing. They sold into tier 3 subcontracting builders. And then once they added features and got more notoriety, they went up to tier 2, and now you see them entering into the enterprise space, which is tier 1, because they're actually growing with features and exploring and aligning their process with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's logic.
Yeah.
It's logic. It's based on, it makes sense. It makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, and I think where people say, go and you're a quiet guy. If I told you to go and cold call 50 people a day, it's a numbers game. Chances are you're not going to do it. You're going to be really uncomfortable doing it. It just doesn't feel right. There's other ways. Helping people get to that buying choice, buying decision is a natural way that people buy.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Consultative selling.
Sure.
Really.
And the first step to that is mapping out what you'd assume their process to be.
Yeah, so you can start with an hypothesis, but you really need to go and investigate yourself. All markets are different. Accountants want to receive information a specific way, probably through spreadsheets, where engineers want to see something different, or HR something different. So all markets are different, and it's about going to ask the right questions and going, hey, what are their drivers? Tier 3, if you're dealing with a subcontractor like a builder or something like that, how do you make the choices? He goes, well, I'm the director, my wife's also a director. I just got to run it by her and get the okay, or I can make decisions myself. You go, well, that's okay. Well, I understand how that works, so I just have to help him get to a better outcome.
Yeah.
Right. Tier 2's maybe 2 or 3 people in a decision and have to answer to a GM. Okay, well, what's important to the GM, right? And then tier 1, an example, when I was at Red Eye, this large electrical transmission company, 13 people were on the buying committee. It's completely different. Yeah. So understanding
sounds like a nightmare to me.
Well, it's actually, it's not when you do all the other work up front and you give them the tools, you show them the context of the problem.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own unique things like security, which is security and IT and all that kind of stuff. But essentially they can see, hey, this problem's this big and we do need to solve it, and they solve it in a way to give us these outcomes. And and it's an easy thing to move forward.
Cool.
Yeah.
Love it. And as part of the prep for this episode, we've talked about a few things, but one thing that you did say in particular that really on this topic that caught my attention was that you're probably not selling what you think you are selling, and I think you put it under maybe one of your unpopular opinions or uncommon opinions, and it triggered something in me because I thought I think I read an article a few years ago about something along these lines, and basically my story with that was that I used to argue with people about what you're buying when you go out to tea, right, or to a restaurant. Is I had a housemate at the time, or a friend at the time, who would say you're buying food.
Yep.
And my argument was, no, you're not, because you can buy food, you can get takeaway, you can buy it from the supermarket. Why go to a restaurant? You're buying privacy, you're buying, well, not necessarily privacy, but you're buying,
intimacy.
Yeah, intimacy. Yeah. Sorry, the word I was looking for. And the convenience, I guess, you're buying. And I don't think it's food. So I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on, obviously, your uncommon opinion or your unpopular opinion, however you want to say it.
Yep. So when you're selling hardware, it's really easy to see what someone's buying. If I go and buy a car from a car yard, I know what I'm buying. Sure, it's a car, but I'm actually buying the convenience and the speed of getting to point A to point B without actually having to walk, right? But a car's a car. People understand it. What you're really doing is, when I went to buy a car recently with my wife, who was pregnant at the time, I actually was buying a car, but I was buying something safe for her and our future daughter. So if I was really buying a car, I would have bought a $15,000 car, but I actually bought a four-wheel drive that's up off the ground, has all airbags and things like that, because I wanted her to be safe, right? I'm buying peace of mind at the end of the day, really. And when it comes to SaaS, people think that they're selling their product, but they're actually not. And I think a really good example of that is, before I talk about that, is if you go to McDonald's, Ray Kroc, they said, "Do you sell hamburgers?" And he was like, "No, I don't. We're a real estate company. We make our money from the valuation of real estate." I was like, that makes so much sense. And if you go to a hardware, if you buy a drill, are you really buying the drill? Or do you want the hole the drill will give you, right? If you're only drilling a hole every 3 months or every period of time, a $20 electric drill will be fine. But if you're drilling holes for a profession and you're drilling 500 a day or something like that, which I've done, and it's not very fun. we used to buy DeWalt drills because they're reliable, they charge fast. So you're buying the ability to drill holes.
To drill 500 holes a day.
Yeah, correct.
Not one every 3 months.
Yeah, correct. So with SaaS, you really need to ask yourself what you're selling, because it's intangible. You can't touch it. You can't see it other than typically web pages and mobile apps. It's intangible. So why would someone pay $10,000 a month or $20,000 a month or $40,000 a month in my case, and even now it's $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year? Until you actually understand what that is, what you're selling, then people are going to be disappointed when they implement, because they think that they're buying something but they're buying another. So fundamentally, a SaaS product is software as a service. It's a fundamental business process improvement. So before you can actually show your value and someone will be willing to pay X, you really need to understand what problems you solve and how they impact their business, and find a way to measure them. You might be able to cut corners and get around not doing that every now and then, but to build a repeatable scales process where you can consistently demonstrate ROI or benefit to the business, you need to be able to measure the current state. Yeah. And then in our case with Red Eye, our ticket price was somewhere between $20,000 to $40,000 in monthly recurring revenue on a line item that they often were not paying for before it was a new market. So when it's zero on a P&L, and now it's $480,000 a year at 40 grand, you really, they're not buying. That's not what they're buying. You're actually buying a reduction of risk, an improvement in efficiency, and safety. But until you can measure it, they're catchphrases, right? That means nothing. They're finite. You need to get those terms that mean different things to me, that mean different things to you. You need to be able to measure it in a way that your unique value will be able to solve. And until you can do that, you're not going to be able to get people to an efficient buying decision regularly. Hence, you're not able to build a scalable sales process. Does it make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yeah. Really, really interesting. I'm just digesting it all. But you do speak about Red Eye there. So on the last time we spoke, you were still working there.
Yep.
But I understand you moved on to a multinational after that.
Yeah. I went to a company called Hitachi ABB now. Yep.
Sure. Yep. And what were you hoping to learn there?
So I think it's important to understand how people upskill in the sales world. And I think when I heard Louise on your podcast, when I hear it was last week, and by the time this goes out, it's probably not right. She talked about her marketing journey and doing an MBA, and you can go to university for marketing, and I think she went to Griffith for her MBA. Can you go to university for a sales degree?
Not that I know of.
No, right? So the way we learn to do sales is through experience, and you need to upskill during your journey. If you're conscious of this, you can stay in an industry and get pigeonholed, and then it's hard to jump because that's all you begin to know. You get shaped by your thoughts in a particular industry. But when I originally spoke to you, I had my time I did some carpet cleaning, and then I went to Vodafone, and then I went to WorkPack, which is a recruitment company. I wasn't aware of it at the time what I was doing, but what I was upskilling from B2C, B2B, B2B again. Then I went to Red Eye. So what happened at the end of my time at Red Eye, I realized I was getting stagnant, but I was actually really comfortable, and I was becoming really successful. And I was like, I've got to leave because I'm getting comfortable, and I had some theories around selling SaaS, but it's only through one lens, and that's an outlier. That's a real risk if you're going to base something on that, right? So I had to leave, and I wanted to go to a multinational. There's not many SaaS businesses or software businesses that sell into enterprise companies here in Brisbane. So Hitachi ABB was a natural choice. So I left when it was a really, really difficult decision. It's incredibly painful. I went in at maybe about 20th employee and left at about 80 or close to 100 or whatever it was, being through from not a lot of revenue to a significant amount and being responsible for a lot. So a lot of good friends and really close with the founder. And he was a close mentor of mine. And I respect him hugely for him giving me the time to actually evolve as a person. But I stopped learning, and I wanted to go on and actually apply it somewhere else where I had no history, and went there, and it was actually really good. And I was like, this is great. My theory's sound. COVID hit, which I worked from home for 12 months, which was is what it is for everyone. But ultimately, working in a multinational, being one of 100 or 200,000 employees, I had limited ability to have an effect on a business. So that really got me thinking about where my passion lies. And that's where I started investigating this and went, right, this is actually sound. Did a course. So Sales Market Fit's about doing a course for founders. I did a founders in the sales team. So I did a MVP course with them, and a few of them are having immediate success by looking at it from a different lens and going, mate, this just unlocked a heap of stuff. So I was like, right. And then during my research, I was like, someone said there are a lot of teachers out there, but not a lot of doers. I was like, you are absolutely right. my journey's not finished in enterprise SaaS. So hence why I decided to leave ABB and go back into a scaling up software business called MyPass as a sales director to learn, apply, and evolve the sales market fit framework, because we always need to evolve, but run it in a case study in the business that I'm in, but also learn and share and learn from other founders. And I'm building a community with other founders to learn from each other and apply it to my business that I'm in with MyPass, and then apply it back. Yeah,
very cool. And I imagine to be able to teach this, you've seen, the best of sales. You've probably seen the worst of sales as well. Can you think of a time when a sales meeting or something like that went poorly?
I'll tell you, I'll start with this. We have no business touching other men's faces. I'll just start with that, right?
Okay, sure.
So I was at this meeting. Talking to this gentleman, and it was it pains me to tell you this story, Jack. So I'm at this meeting having a chat about what we do at Red Eye, and there was his hair on this guy's face. It was unnormally long.
Okay.
Huge. I'm saying, I don't know, people might not be able to see in a camera, but it was at least 6 inches long, sitting on his cheek. And it was annoying me after about 10 minutes. I said, mate, excuse me. And I grabbed it, and I thought it would just come off his cheek. And as I did it, his cheek went,
oh no.
And I sunk into my chair. Jack, I had no business touching that man's face.
Right.
I'm mortified. And it was horrendous. And I don't even know what happened at the end of the meeting. I was like, I'm sorry. It was good to meet you. I'm just going to go now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But mistakes happen all the time. Sales is about making mistakes and learning from it, moving forward. A lesson I learned is you do not touch anyone else's face. And if you think, it will fall off naturally if it's not meant to be there. And I can only imagine what he was thinking. I was mortified. It was terrible. Yeah.
How did he react?
We pretended it didn't happen. It was better. We just both pretended it didn't happen. But it was, it was, every time I tell that story, people go, what are you doing touching that man's face? I have no idea. I had no business doing it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was, but if you do it long enough, you make mistakes. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It was horrendous.
Oh, that's one of my favourite stories I've ever heard, I think.
Oh, God. Yeah. But we won an award that year. So,
oh, yeah?
Yeah. We won the mining award, I think, for at Red Eye as a, through that competition anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And is this the you needed to win this innovative award or something like that?
No, this was a proper award.
Okay.
There was another time that I was at a conference, we'll say, and they had really, really nice centerpieces in the table. I was with a founder, so I'm going to premise that.
Sure.
And the founder goes, I think we were most innovative at this conference. I said, you are absolutely right. I'm not going to tell you which founder it was, but it wasn't Wayne. And I was like, we need an award. He goes, yep. So we ran Point. I ran Point. I disrupted or ran interference, sorry. And we got the award out. So I took it home, and I took the centerpiece home. And I went to Mr. Minute on the weekend and got most innovative 2016 probably it was.
Yeah.
At wherever we were. And so at Forever On, we went in on Monday. It was like, we won the most innovative, and everyone thought for years, they probably still do until now, that we were the most innovative at this conference.
Right.
Went in slide decks, went in everything.
Wow.
Yeah. So the world's what you make it, Jack.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. If you control the message, you control the outcome.
Yeah. Oh, geez, would seem so. Well, I think we're on a roll with a funny story. So let's bust out Splendor in the Grass. What'd you do at Splendor in the Grass, Gavin?
Oh, sometimes you need to be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember I used to go out a lot when I was younger. I remember being at the zoo and I saw Sonic Animation on stage, and someone's boyfriend was the fan club guy. And I was like, mate, if you ever need anyone to dance in those suits, you let me know. Like, we're going to Splendor. He goes, yeah, okay. Never heard a thing about it. On a Thursday before we're going to Splendor in the Grass, which is from Saturday and Sunday, he goes, mate, do you want to dance in that Theopolis Sister suit? And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. Anyway, worst decision ever made. After 2 days of being at a dance festival down in Byron Bay, drinking, I was not in a state. I was so tired.
Yeah.
It was so hot. So they get you up on stage, put this vacuum suit on, put a vacuum on, you puff up. I was so overheated, I almost passed out, and it was terrible. You get off the stage, he goes, mate, you got to get back on for the encore. I was like, I do not want to go back on there. But it turned out to be a great story. But the moral of that story is be careful what you ask for, because you might get it, and it may not be necessarily what you want to get.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of things in your time.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, you've been around long enough. There's enough stories.
Well, let's keep going. Delivery driver.
Oh no!
What happened? What happened with that?
As a podcast of funny
stories.
Yeah,
yeah. I just want to keep doing this for the minute.
All right.
We'll talk about sales soon.
Yeah. All right. So delivery driving back in the day. So I was at a famous chicken place. So when they used to do delivery years ago, I was about 17. I went to this house and knocked on the door, and then I heard this lady get up, and I heard this almighty crunch on the ground, and I was like, a big thud, and I was like, hello, are you okay? And then nothing. I was like, oh my God, what's going on here? And I hear this, help me. And I was like, hello? Like, I'm 17, I don't know what's going on. I was like, what do you want me to do? She goes, come around the back. So I went around the back, and she goes, there's a knife on the water heater, unlatch the latch. I was like, oh God, here we go. Unlatch the latch. And there was a big lady. Right?
Okay.
She was clearly drinking.
Yeah.
And she fell over her wine, her cask wine that was in the doorway, and she got herself wedged in the doorway. I'm this young kid. I don't know what to do here. I'm going, well, what do you want me to do? And she's like, can you help me up? And I was like, oh no. I tried to help her up. The lady was stuck, and proper stuck, like wedged, like it was bad. And I've gone, I can't move you. I don't know what to do. She goes, can you go get the neighbours? I was like, oh, Jesus. And here I am with my bag of chicken, knocks next door. And then I was like, hey, he goes, who are you? And I was like, the lady's fallen over next door. I can't get her up. And so we call the ambulance. I'm sitting on the front stairs. I don't know what the rules are with work. I can't go back until I get my money. I'm sitting on the front step. All the ambulances come. They're trying to get this lady up. She's screaming and screaming. And that guy comes out and goes, what are you doing here? And I say, man, I haven't got my money for the chicken. And so after about an hour, he gives me the money, and I go back to the office. This is before mobile phones. I go, what happened? And I told them the story. And I was like, no, that did not happen. I was like, yeah, it actually happened. So it was, and at the time, I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. It was, it was an interesting story. Yeah.
Oh wow. And your workmates did end up believing you though?
Well, I can't remember. That was too long. I just remember the story. Yeah.
Oh,
It was, not the most affluent area. So it was, it was just not the nicest house. It was, I should have left. I should have left.
Oh, I'm having so much fun. I could keep asking you about stories, but we better go back to to business. This is what the podcast is.
Yeah, well,
is all about.
If I remember any funny stories, I'll let you know.
Yeah. Just cut me off and say, "Oh, that's right. I've got this one to tell you too." So, you obviously worked at this multinational after Red Eye.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got an experience in mind that kind of summed up what you got out of that, or what you learned from that?
There are different types of salespeople, right? There's different types of salespeople for different stages of a company's growth. In a startup, you need to be a lot more proactive. There needs to be less salespeople who are probably more likely to succeed are the ones who jump industry because they want to get experience. One of the biggest things that I see with founders is, hey, I'm in a software company, I want a software salesman. And you have to have this amount of experience. And if you work for companies like Xerox or those big companies as an example, they're more likely to be successful. But that's actually not necessarily true, because they've been around, they've learnt, they've gone through the hard yards, and they're actually established and on decent money. They don't want to actually be proactive because that requires effort.
So they wouldn't have the same brand awareness either, right? Like for a smaller company, like is that, do some of the salespeople at the bigger companies rely on that a little bit?
Yeah, there's very delineated, right? There's lead generational marketing. Hey, that's not me. I'll throw that over the fence to that department.
Yeah.
That just doesn't exist in a startup because you have to wear many hats. But you also have to go above and beyond. Like, how are you? Software is the emerging market of where of sales at the moment. So if I was in a car yard, if I wanted to get in a car, like selling cars or something like that, or pest control, whatever that may be, working Saturdays or showing open homes in real estate, if I don't want to do that anymore, I'd like to get into software. If you're them, you're going to go above and beyond and do whatever you need to do to demonstrate and get into the market, so you're more proactive, and it's about what needs to be done now. What you're actually recruiting into that is you're actually not recruiting their skill, you're recruiting their effort, because their mindset and being proactive, going above and beyond, not afraid to get calls. The technical founder has a technical skill. He can actually help in the sales process, but often what a technical founder doesn't have is the time to do the effort or the experience to do that and go, hey, that doesn't work in when you're calling people. You actually got to be a bit more, this structure works better, because they're all soft skills that you really learn over time. So what happens is, if you upskill someone into that industry or give them a chance, but you pair them with someone who's technical, eventually what happens is a knowledge transfer will happen. They can only bring people into the front of the funnel, sales funnel, which is a term.
Yep.
And as they get more experience, they can go further into the funnel until they get to the end, and that's how they upskill. So I learned that when I was at ABB. That's a really old industry. It's on the adoption curve. It's really an established market. So they don't need salespeople. Well, sorry, that's not true. What I wanted to do there was really not a great fit for that company. Highly, their platforms are 20 years old and really, really technical. I don't have that technical ability. I'm not a software guy. I'm an outcome guy or an operations person. So my effort was second to none, but the knowledge of the platform was a little bit different, and I wasn't content on that. So I was like, I want to have more an effect on the business, help it grow. Their P&L's in the billions, I think. So how am I ever going to show that I'm going to be successful? And I could have stayed there, but then I would have been got lazy. So I didn't. I just decided to move, even though I've never been paid more. It just was not it wasn't exciting for me.
Sure. So what did you do?
So that's when I started asking myself, what do I really want? What's my passion? And that's when I started really unpacking what motivates me, what's my unique skill set. And then it got me thinking about this sales. Well, I didn't have a term for it at the time. It actually started on Anzac Day. When we had the driveway service last year for COVID, we were in the driveway, and there's a Tesla sitting across the road for a couple of months, and I was like, Peter, tell me about your Tesla, because he never drove it. Yeah. And he said, yeah, my son bought it for me. I was like, hang on. Your son's 14. Yeah. And he goes, yeah, he is. And I was like, hang on. Tell me about that. And he goes, well, he's a YouTube star. He puts videos together on YouTube, and he has 1.3 million subscribers, and he gets something like 5 cents per video per ad that's played on each one of his videos. He on average, he gets 400,000 videos of watches of his video. I went in and watched his videos, and they weren't that crash hot. And it got me thinking, we're approaching this the wrong way. Like, we're in a transition, my age group, which is in a transition from how to do sales from yesteryear, where you'd have the traveling salesman that thought that had to be in front of a company to sell. And that makes sense, because we weren't in the information age then. They were limited to what information was out there. So the salesman had to go there, and it was built on relationships, because procurement processes weren't as stringent as what they are now. So I could go and take you out to town, take you to the footy, whatever, and you would like me and be more than inclined to buy from me. So we're stuck in that time. There's a transition going on. And I was like, I'm doing this wrong. Like, we don't necessarily need to be in front of people these days anymore. And COVID's proven that. And so I was like, what am I doing that my passion is, but how can I do it differently? And I actually sat on it for months, and I was like, it'll show itself up when it's ready. Then I realized that this sales market fit is a it's often a linear journey. You don't need to know the end until you know the beginning, and as you go. Founders are so time poor that they don't like. How much do you retain from a live course over a 2 or 3 day period? Even a day, you probably retain what they say, something like 10 or 15%. I was like, that's a waste. That's really a waste. That's just about trying to get a revenue grab and not actually giving value. So I was like, okay, well, what if I structure the course in this way, so when they need it and they get to that point, they can go and look at it and go, right, or do this worksheet, and they'll have a different perspective and won't look at things again the same. Then when they get to the next point, how do we help them with a business case? Well, that's great. I don't know. Let's help you figure out how to do that. And then they'll learn and contribute to the community and move on. So people share in the community. And so I was like, okay. And I started developing the course and getting my thoughts out, which they're not easy to unpack if you really know something about getting it in a way to teach people. But it's an evolving process. So getting that out on the page and then going through with a group of founders to do that. And then in my journey, Matt Smith, the CEO of MyPass, said, hey, this is a brilliant idea and I absolutely need it. I'm a founder-led business. We're at X amount annual revenue. I need someone to come on and build a process. Do you want to use us as a living case study to do it? And I was like, that makes sense. That makes sense. This is not an and or. This is not an or function of me doing sales market fit or MyPass. It's an and, because it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've got something to ask about when you talk about the, let's say those in-person experiences have changed a bit, wining and dining, that type of thing. One thing I've found a little bit is with some people I've helped is people starting a podcast is actually. I've found it is a good way to get to know someone. It's a good way to build rapport. It's a good way to give someone a great experience and to, possibly sell something to them later down the track. Not obviously in the podcast or not straight after the podcast, but I kind of saw that as a point of difference that some people can have, where they meet the people in the target market, especially with the high LTVs, right? You don't do this for a $100 product or something. You can't make your money back. But I've actually found that has been somewhat effective. So what do you think of that? Like, what's your take on that when you say that we don't need to do that anymore?
There's all value in it. There's value in building rapport and getting them to know you. But that doesn't work for them to award you a contract, which is what the old sales people of yesteryear used to do. If you're selling, you said hopefully sell something to them later. So you're ultimately more than likely dealing with someone who's a sole decision maker or something like that, right? But if you're dealing with let's just say a chief operating officer of a business, and you want to wine and dine him or her out, and you expect that they're going to award you a $2 million or $3 million contract, it's probably not going to happen, because they defer to their team, who's a committee of a buying committee. Their leadership these days are not directive anymore. It's collaborative, and it's a collaborative effort. So if you're doing it for the intention of selling them something at a B to E, it's probably wasting your time. That's why the procurement process is set up. So you can't do that and unfairly influence a buying process. So if you go and play golf with the chief operating officer, or you take him to the footy, sometimes they ask you to fill out if there's a conflict of interest going on there in the procurement process. They can ask you that in the government, right? Yeah. But if your goal is to build rapport and get insight to understand what the key drivers are within a business, or what Mike from IT's real problem is, if he has a problem, then that's different. But it's not to sell, it's to get insight and build rapport and then get to know you. Yeah, it's a different thing. Yeah. But in a tier 3 or a tier 2, like tier 3 maybe sliding into tier 2, yes, that makes sense, because they're the key decision maker. They got to like you to buy from you. It does make sense in that sense. But I wouldn't be doing that for in that example I said there was 13 people on a buying committee. Yeah, sure. The probity issues in that, they just would not let that happen, and they would have to declare it. Yeah, it just doesn't work once you start getting to high value. Well, not saying it doesn't work. It starts breaking down. Yeah, interesting. So that's I think I am dealing with more B2B sort of those, maybe medium-sized companies where maybe it still can work that way. Yeah, but if it sits under their P&L or their responsibility for one thing. But if it's organizational wide, it starts getting a little bit cloudy. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense. And why, when you go to do sales market fit, what attracted you to the online course, like business model? What was the thinking there?
It's mainly for convenience for the founders or the people in the course, because if we did an hour course and masterclass now, you may retain some of it, but you may not retain all of it. At least if you watched the video and then it was in the back of your mind and you said, I've got this problem, I can go back to it and then refer to it. It's not just an online course as well. It's about opening your mind up to what that is, about the perspective, and saying, hey, go and research your market, the different market tiers in the market. Now jump on a coaching call and talk to me about what you found and what your thinking is, and I will test you on that, or we'll work together on actually building that out from my experience on from what I know in the markets I operate in. You know, we all have blind spots that we're not aware of, and that's what it is. This framework is, it's about opening those blind spots up so you can at least begin to fill them in. Now, some of the group coaching calls is about some founders are actually will learn from others as well. And I'll give you an example. Ben Hallett from Vigo app come through the course. And I was like, mate, how's it going? Because, mate, it's amazing. He goes, what happened? What you forced me to do is actually really look at the state of the pipeline. And I was overconfident. But what it made me do is be honest and go back and reassess with the client about what they were thinking. In some of the instances, what I assumed was their problem actually wasn't their problem. Their real problem was X. And we can solve that much better. So I actually focused on that, and it actually opened up other opportunities as well. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of theory. It's theory, right? But you really got to put it into action. So understanding the framework, but then actually creating the systems to break through people's behavior and the noise of people's workplace and our workplace is the other thing. But also drilling it down to what activity do you need to do today or this week to have any chance of hitting your goal at the end of the year. And often people don't do that. They want to get their process right, and they'll just fluff around with activity, but there's really a science to it of doing this many contacts on a weekly basis will deliver this result. And then the art is using the right process or to maximize your efficiency and your percentage of getting through the funnel.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And from your personal perspective, obviously that's how it helps them, but the business model, like, is it an attractive business model to you personally for your own goals?
It helps maximize my time as well, because my sole job is I'm a student of sales, and I'm a student of learning and of B2B SaaS as well. So I need to focus on that with MyPass, and I've given them a time commitment to that, and we'll reassess at the end of that to see if it's starting to encroach in that time. But also, I wish that there was a course that was structured like this when I was learning, because I would jump all over it, because I could learn, jump on a coaching call, say, hey, this is my thinking, this is what I'm thinking here, and go, hey, what you're trying to do, does it affect mindset change? Because that's what we want to do. Are you doing this exercise for the sake of it, or are you trying to change your state of mind from this to this? Well, are you trying to help affect mindset change? Because really, as I mentioned, sales is about affecting mindset change from X to Y in a series of steps. So I wish someone had this. I would have knocked 3 years off my sales journey. Right? And founders are so time poor. It's meant for founders to also get an understanding of the framework, then manage their sales team through it. So whether they're expanding into other geographies or because they're outsourcing because they're time poor, but at least they can say, hey, tell me what compelling events they've had so they're interested in this, or when are they ready to move forward? Oh, well, I haven't covered that off. Well, there you go. You actually aren't making as much progress as what you want. Instead of before, when they get to 6 months, as I mentioned, no sales will come through. The founder can say, are they mentally checking off these boxes that we know we need to cover off? Do they know who the economic buyer is? Have we helped them with their problem definition? No. Very quickly, you can start telling that they're not making progress to the end outcome. Because one way or another, they probably need to go through this. Either you help them, or they do it themselves, or someone else helps them. And the other two, the latter, are more than likely they're not going to come to the conclusion of your value. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Just processing. Right there. It reminds me of a concept. I think it was called information timing, but basically it's like some people have had more effect on helping people when they've taught less. You know, and this idea, it reminds me of this because you're giving the right information at the right time. It sounds like in their process, and you're not, and you know, it's not that whole more is better where you don't want to overload them. Like you want the right information to get to them at the right time.
Correct. Yeah. Like sometimes you get in a sales meeting, if anyone has it, and it feels like there's this feels real. This feels like there's a connection here. The temptation is you'll go through the process and you'll go, tell me about your problems, and you'll say, right, I can solve that. And you'll tell them hey, we can do this and solve that. Your current state is here. We can actually help you here. And I go, yeah, I can see that. And then you get super excited. And then you start telling them every single feature, and we can do this, and we can do that. And because you go, oh, they're going to see the value here. But you're right. It's information overload. You've just diluted what that is there, because they may see it, but there's also a chance they could get lost in the message of you just throwing everything in the bucket, right? So it's about delivering the right piece of information at the time to affect mindset change, but then checking that you just didn't make that up.
Yeah.
You know, how does that feel? Yeah, that feels like you can really help. You go, okay, well, it makes sense that you probably want to see what it does so you can make up your own mind. Well, it's logical, right? Yep. Okay, now it makes sense to do a demo. And then if it's a B2B or B2E scenario, a single person, you show interest in a person, right? And person shows interest. They're going to want to see it. But in a big business, they're probably not willing to put their reputation on the line and ask other people to come into it. They will say, hey, Jack, come and have a look at this platform. And then you get in there and it's not very good. And they went, oh, God, sorry. I'm sorry about that. That's actually embarrassing. So the people will be tempted to put in, hey, bring in all your mates or bring in all your colleagues to have a look. But you stifle conversation because people aren't honest and open when there's more than 3 or 4 people in a room, probably more than 3. So doing a single person demo and reaffirming their pain, and you go, right, remember how we spoke about this? This is how we would help you, and it would reduce efficiency around there. And the lady goes, oh, or person goes, yes, I see it. Actually, this is relevant for Jen or Mike. I think we should show them. You go, right, there we go. What she's thinking now is, I need to actually go and recruit allies if I want to get this across the line, because multiple people will need to be involved. So they'll go away and come in with 2 or 3 more people into the next meeting. Now, instead of trying to convince the 3, you only need to convince 2 because one's already on board and she's the champion going, hey, this is really great. I think it'll apply for here. And you're far better affecting mindset change in an organization one at a time, or having someone who works there doing that on your behalf. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So you can't rush it. It just takes time in some instances. If it's $100 a month, you can't afford to do that.
No.
You can't have multiple stakeholders because the cost of customer acquisition is too high. You should be able to do at MyPass, we're able to sell, maybe $4,000 a year in 1 or 2 calls, like because it's one person making that decision, because it's a director of a company that experiences the pain themselves. You wouldn't bring in 3 or 4 other people at $100 an hour, which is $500.
Yep.
The cost of customer acquisition is too high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense. Makes absolute perfect sense.
Yeah, you just got to think about, hey, if I worked at an organization, how would I share an idea? It's politics. You need one person will go to each person and convince them. And here's a tip. If you're ever trying to convince a team in your office of something, like 5 people that we should go in a direction, you should not be going into a meeting trying to convince them. You should have met with each one of those people individually and got them to this point of going, yeah, I can see that. And then the meeting is just confirmation. It's near impossible, unless you're gregarious or a senior manager, to get people all on board if they're your peers, because it is just, the chances of that happening is not very high. You're far better off doing it one-on-one, and you can affect mindset change far easier.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And is this, Would this framework apply to introverts and extroverts the same? Like, do you have a specific type of founder who will, warm to this approach more than others, or?
No, I think it's not about how you deliver. Like, okay. I don't think it relies on that. It requires thinking. Like, a founder starts a business, and if someone goes and starts a business, they really should know more about that problem than anybody. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't imagine that you could start, Dave Cole, who's a founder of Fly Freely. I wouldn't expect that anyone would know much more about drones, statutory compliance, and than he would. And then, so he knows all the ins and outs. He probably knows it intrinsically, but getting it out to write business cases, it'd be work on his behalf if he's not familiar to it, which is, Dave went through my course as well. So outgoing people are great. They have their own skill set. They have something that I don't have. I really struggle to control a room, like in a large audience. If we're not, I can control a meeting, but just in a social situation, I'd rather sit on the side. But I think really well. So there's pros and cons to both, and but I think sales market fit, it doesn't matter your personality type. It's about the buyer's journey. It's not us. Yeah, it's not about us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about, and a lot to digest with all this stuff. So cool. So what are your goals? Like, what are you wanting to do over the next year or two with Sales Market Fit?
Yeah. So my goal is to help as many founders as I can.
Yeah.
And the reason is because I hate bad sales. I do. It's very, like, I don't like it. Yeah. Well, there is a stigma that goes along with being a salesperson. It is what it is. I can't change it, but I can only change it in a way that I can, is helping founders help on clients on a buying journey.
Yeah.
Now,
and you don't fit that stereotype at all of the stereotypical salesperson.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so, right. Yeah, I don't like the cheesy stuff.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about, why do I think this? And because it's different. I don't see it in the market, and it's not often talked about because I look for literature and it just doesn't exist. And I actually heard a podcast the other day with Mike Cannon-Brooks from Atlassian, and he said they were at a distinct advantage in hindsight by being in Australia, because they didn't have access to the talent that was in Silicon Valley at the time. And I was like, that it took me a little bit, but that makes sense, because when I was at Redeye, our market for water utilities and power utilities and mining companies and oil and gas, if you put that all together, it's probably about, conservatively, I'd say 300 companies, right? If we were blasting through them, we could easily do 30 a week. It would take 10 weeks to go through the whole market in Australia, and we'd have no one to talk to again, potentially, if we did it the wrong way. But in America, it's completely different. We have 35, maybe with smaller water utilities, I'll call it 50, somewhere like that in Australia. In the US, there's something like 30,000. So you burn one, there's another one. You have not an infinite marketplace, but it's definitely large, way larger than Australia. And you could go through all those 30 companies on a regular basis and not get through all them in 5-year period when they're coming up for renewal. So you really have an infinite marketplace as such, if you're talking about water industry. But in Australia, we don't have that. We don't have a mass market. So we have to be very considered, and we have to help people to get to a buying journey instead of waiting for the natural percentage who will come up for renewal anytime. And you just need to find them. We have to help people to get to that. So we have to be far more deliberate and far more considered and far more thought out quality in our approach. And it makes sense when you think about going out one layer further, when the Ford motor car is mass produced in the US, so they have a mass market. Their approach for building motor cars is not as luxurious as the German or the Japanese market. That's a smaller market, so they get better at doing that. And we're kind of, I would say that's very similar, because it's not a finite market. We have to be far better at it, far more efficient at it, and get people to a buying choice far more deliberately, and helping them through that.
And that's an advantage. I mean, because I hear that, and I think that you burn through all these people in America, and from a company point of view, well, doesn't matter so long as you get as many as you need.
Well, yeah. Well, if you have an infinite marketplace, you can just throw arms and legs at it and potentially get to your target. But we're also in the age where people don't need to take your call. They can just block you.
Yeah.
It doesn't. We're not at. They can't avoid. They can avoid you quite simply.
Yes.
And if a sale within a large enterprise, let's just say it takes months and a series of calls or meetings. Let's just say 20. Once you do you make one call and you're annoying, they just hang up. That's gone. That could be a perfect customer. It's just a different environment. Now, if you find product market fit, and there's great product market fit, and you just need to tweak it a little bit, which is what we're doing at MyPass, we're just applying a process to this. You will see we're starting to see growth like really quickly, and it's because there's really good product market fit in our market, yet we're actually aligning the processes to it, and we'll build a scalable sales machine. And to circle back, what your other question was, what's my goal? My goal is to actually help marry founders and salespeople eventually. People who want to change industry, I will develop a program to help salespeople from other industries come into the software world, based around sales market fit and managing activity levels. And then my goal is to marry them up. So when founders want to go through the program and they go, right, we're scaling, this is working, great, here's some people here that I think you will, the common language.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
almost recruiting.
I haven't even thought about revenue from that. That's just about helping people. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
but I do have some medium-term plans I'm going to sit on with that.
Cool.
Yeah. I'll come back for number 3.
Yeah. Well, in 4 years' time, come back and tell me how it went. But yeah, cool. All right. We'll wrap up soon, Gavin.
Yeah.
Awesome to talk to you today. Is there anything else you wanted to sort of say, or anything else, any other tips, or you wanted to put as a footnote on this episode?
I would just say empathy really is our most powerful tool as salespeople. Like if someone's not moving forward, and from your discussion, put yourself in their shoes and say, well, why? How did I deliver the message? And really, we could either put our hands up and say, it's them, but I believe we can absolutely control the outcome, and it's about changing our perspective. If someone didn't move forward, when I have a conversation with them, in my mind, it was my messaging. I didn't present the information, like you said early, in a compelling enough way for them to move forward. So I need to think about that, consider a lot of variables about who the person is, and sure, that one may be gone, but tomorrow I might have the same opportunity, and if I haven't learnt from this one, I'm actually going to repeat the lesson again. So it's about, sales is empathy. Put yourself in those shoes. If a client doesn't move forward because of the $15,000 annual subscription that you put on there, like what would you do? Like why wouldn't you move forward and go, well, one, I didn't see the value, or two, if I'm a manager or something like that and I haven't seen proof that we're going to get a return on investment. So you could either ignore that and say it's not my fault, it's theirs, or you can actually fix that and actually create tools. So if people want any talk about it, I'm easily contactable. So.
Sure. Where should they contact you?
So I've got a website, salesmarketfit.co, or on LinkedIn, Gavin Tye. Easy to find me.
Yep. Link to it in the show notes. And, as always, and I'm sure people will find what you had to say very interesting. It's quite it's interesting to hear how your thinking's evolved from our last episode.
Well, I went back and listened to it too, and it's on the same trend, but it's just more rounded out and more not theory, but putting it into a framework that can be learnt, because it makes no sense if it's just me. If I just do it, then it's a guy with a skill that can sell well, or sell well. But if I can figure out a way to share it with others, and it's a skill that's transferable and helps other people with their SaaS businesses, really, or services businesses, exactly the same. Software as a service is just a version of a service, so it works for service businesses as well. Yeah,
cool. All right. Well, salesmarketfit.co.
Yep.
Gavin Tye on LinkedIn. That's the places all the listeners should go to find out more and to get in touch. But Gavin, thanks very much for coming back, and
that was great.
And being it was called Be the Push last time. Now you're on the Push, so I got rid of the B at the start of the podcast. So you kind of have been on 2 podcasts, actually, really, haven't you?
Mate,
So.
you've got new digs as well.
Yeah.
Like you've upgraded.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that changed. So but awesome to have you back on season 2 after you're on season 1. Season 3, we look forward to talking to you on that one again, hearing
Thanks,
how
mate.
it's all going. But awesome to have you in.
Great. Cheers. Thanks for having me.